We're going to look at making a concertina in InDesign. We're going to look at using vector graphics and turn those into image fills. We are going to look at some more things with type and creating columns, and yeah, just expand on our knowledge of InDesign a little bit more. So I've got InDesign here, and I'm going to make this nice and full screen. And we're going to make a concertina. Now, a concertina is like the accordion book, yeah? If I create new file here, when I am thinking about making a concertina, I want to think about the medium in which we want to print this out on. Now, the roll printers here at UCI will print 109 centimeters long. If it's longer than that, my prints actually need to be printed on the width, the length side of the paper rather than the width, which means I might want to print multiple copies right next to each other, or I might want to cut things up, because if I have it longer than 109, I'm going to pay per meter. So if it's like 120, I'm going to pay for a meter and a bit for that printed paper. So keep that in mind when you are doing something like a concertina as a type of book. So once again, I'm going to change my units here because it defaults to picas for some reason. And I'm going to put my width in as what I know I want it to be. Now, if you are going to make a concertina, think about how you want to fold that book up. So for example, like I know I want my height of my concertina to be A5 size. So I am just going to click on A5 there and go back to millimeters there. So I know my height's 210, but I want to change my width to be the roll of a sheet of paper. Now, I could always multiply 148 by whatever to figure out how many pages I'm going to need, but I'm actually going to turn this into 109 centimeters to make that the width of a roll of paper. Now, I'll probably make it a little bit smaller. Maybe I'll just do a nice meter in length, yeah? If I click preview, you'll see it's making a little version of that. Now with a concertina, if you want to make additional pages, usually with a concertina, because this is that type of accordion book, we're going to actually not make separate pages. We're just going to create columns to split our page up. So once again, like in the last lesson over here, I've got my margins. You can see my margins represented over there as the blue and the pink, or purple and pink rather. And I'm going to probably take that down to about 6 millimeters. And now what I'm going to do to make my pages, I'm going to increase my columns. I'm first off going to change my gutter. Depending on how thick your paper is, you might want to adjust the gutter. That's the space between the columns. And as I do this, if I add additional columns, you see on the left there, more pages being added. So that is basically determining my pages. And I might turn my margins all the way down to none for this, yeah? Just so I can see my pages like that. So I've got 7 columns, meaning my concertina is 7 pages. Once again, it doesn't print to the edge of the page, so if I want nice full colors, I am going to include a bleed in my document of at least 3 millimeters to have nice full color spreads. And when I'm happy with that, I'm going to press OK, create. Now, just a reminder, if I want to change anything about this layout, maybe I've typed in the wrong amount, I could do File, Document Setup, and I could change the settings, the size, the height, all of that within this document here. If I want to change my columns, I'm going to go to Layout, Create Guides, or Margins and Columns, and this will take you to the same space where you can adjust, yeah? Now that I've got my booklet, I'm going to just do a quick refresher on laying things out. So once again, I'm going to perhaps find an image. I'm going to use this just to create a quick little color palette. So once again, on my desktop, I've got a little folder, and in this folder, I've got some lovely little images of coffee, because that is the theme for my my thing. So I'm going to take this in and use this as my reference to get a little color palette from. So I'm going to use this little color palette selection tool there. Remember, I just dragged and dropped that in. That's all you need to do to create, to drop an image in, but we'll go into images again in just a second. But now I've got my little color palette there from that image, and I don't want this image. So if you don't want something, just press delete or the backspace key, and I will get rid of it. So now I'm going to quickly add some little blocks of color. to go into the tool here, add color to that page, turn off my stroke. Maybe for the middle 2 pages will be another color, just to make it interesting. Let's see some more options. We got dark mocha color, maybe a white page, and then maybe another 2 pages over here. Fun times. But you see, I'm just dragging this out. You see, as I'm dragging this too, I've got those little smart guides that come up, and I'm like, is this what you want to be doing? It's gonna snap to things. And as I'm doing these, you'll see it will always want to fill to the edge. Let's go with this color. So now you can see I've got, turn off the stroke, turn off the stroke. So now I've got sort of a rough idea for what my concertina is going to look like. Once again, I've got my layers here. I'm going to call this backgrounds. I'm going to press OK. If you don't see this, go Window, Layers, and that will turn that on. We're F7, and I'm just going to lock this layer so I don't accidentally click that. Now, last time as well, we talked about the importance of creating guides and grids to lay out our things in a nice way. So I'm going to go to Layout, and because this is just one sheet of paper, I'm not messing around with the master page for this. So I'm just doing all of my layout right inside of my concertina. So I'm going to click Create Guides, and I'm going to throw some additional rows in there and some additional columns to split them into even more of a grid. And I'm going to probably turn the gutter all the way down to 0 for this one today, just so you can see the difference. Well, that looks good. Everyone is split across, and I've got a nice little grid in each one of the pages. That all looks good. I'm happy with that. So now I've got some guides, and now I can start adding some content. So just like before, I'm going to go to my Finder, find my images, and let's say I want to grab these 5 images there. And excuse me, that will put that onto my mouse. And by the way, if you use the up and down arrow keys, this will circle through the images that are attached to your mouse. So the arrow keys will circle through them. So maybe I want to have, I don't know, the coffee pouring right in the center. Maybe I want to have, I don't know, this is my cover. How much can you do with coffee design? I don't know. Maybe I want to have a small one. The nice thing about the grid is it's giving me just a few suggestions on where things might lay out really nicely, what might look nice, what not so much. We like when things align to a grid, find it aesthetically pleasing. We like when things sort of feel like there's an order to them. So, and just a reminder, if you want to change the size of something, if you grab it, it's just going to change the frame. If I hold down the Command and the Shift key as I grab it, that's going to actually scale it all up together or scale it down together. Or you can change the size of the frame to whatever you'd like it to be. Control click, go Fitting, and fill frame proportionally. Or right click, yeah? And that will fill that up to the frame for you. So that's just adding images. That's all a review from last time, so hopefully that's all familiar. Same thing with text. If I create a new layer for my text, or actually just work in the same layer, it's fine. I'm going to go to my type tool here. I remember last time we did a quick little thing on just dragging out a text box, typing it in, Command plus to zoom in so you guys can see what I'm typing because it's a million miles away. And once again, over here I've got my paragraph under my properties panel here, all of my settings for laying out my font when I'm in my font tool. And today I thought I'd go over just some things I haven't done with you guys. We're going to look at variable concepts of fonts. They're a new font that was introduced about 1.5 years ago into InDesign. And they're quite interesting. So you need to find one that says variable concept like that one there. And what a variable concept font has, I'll make this nice and big so we can see it, is you see this little button here. Variable fonts means that you can actually create a little, there's a little dial with them that allows you to change the properties of them to what works for what you're trying to achieve. You want really tall fonts or wide fonts. This allows you to be very specific about how you lay that font out. So that is a really nice feature that exists with these variable concept fonts. And it's only ones that say variable concept. So like this, and depending on what the font is, there's different variable concepts. So if I click on this little icon there, once again, that just does the weight for me, so I could make that a thicker font. And let's just kind of adjust those things. And remember, you can always adjust the space between letters and all of that. That's all there. And if you want to center something, remember that with Smart Guides, you'll see that little line pop up when it's nice and centered. I could tell you that font wasn't centered. And if you don't see your font because your text is too small, I said that like that, remember, if you see something like this, just make your text box bigger and use that using the pointer tool or the letter V to go back to that. If you're in typing, yeah, and you want to change the size of go back to a tool. So if I'm in here and I'm typing something and I want to escape and go back to my pointer tool, obviously if I hit the letter V, it's going to type the letter V. But if I want to get out of that, I can hit escape and then I can hit the letter V, and then that takes me back to my pointer tool, which is helpful because I use the keyboard shortcuts all the time, and my best advice to you guys would be to slowly pick up the keyboard shortcuts because it will make your life a lot better. I hope if I'd center that one. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of fonts. I want to start showing you some new things with fonts as well. So over here, let's say on this one here, because I've got some nice little windows there, I want to create text. Yeah, and I'm going to create text here. But let's say I already know right from the get-go that I want my text to kind of start here and then go somewhere else. So like, let's say I want my text to start at this part in my page, and then I want it to kind of go over there for the second part. Maybe I'll do like 1.5 for that one. If I click on the bottom of my text box there, do you see how my mouse changes to that little funky thing? Now I've got this like funky little, it's supposed to be a text icon on it. If I now click and drag, you'll see on this one here that there's a little red arrow in this up corner. This one means that this is going to this one. It's connected to something. So this little down arrow on the red box there, that means that the text will flow out of that, and this means that text flows into it. So top of this one, you'll see it's going to be just plain old white. So now if I have text flowing into this one and I want to go into the next one, I could select that, and I could select another text box here that fills up this entire page. And then it would fill up the entire page, because this one now has, if I look at this one now, if I click on this, you'll see a red little arrow that way and a little red arrow that way, meaning text goes in and out of this one. Now, I am going to quickly fill this with some placeholder text. If I go to paragraph styles, it should, we're going to set some paragraph styles and do some text in this. So if I go type, fill with placeholder text, you'll see that all three of these boxes are going to get filled with text. Boom! Just like that, all of them are filled with placeholder text. And if I started selecting text in here, you'll notice that my selection will go to that one and all the way to that one. And let's change the font out of Minion Pro. Let's do this one. Let's make it a little bit size 10 and a little bit more narrow. And I'll change my paragraph style, and maybe I'll have a little bit of space between my paragraphs. I like that when I'm reading. So now I've got my paragraph style set. Happy with that. What if I wanted to actually have columns of text? Like, what if this one I wanted to split it into columns? To do that, I want to click on my text here. If I want to split this into columns, of course I could have created a second text box, But if I go up to object and I go to text frame options, this is where I can add columns to my text boxes. So if I click 1 to 2, you'll see that's created the columns. Then that's my gutter, that's the space between the two columns of text. You do want to have a bit of a gutter because otherwise it makes it quite hard to read. And I could add that to each one of these. And the other thing I've got is sort of column rules, which if I do that, you'll get these lovely sort of like black lines, but you can change the line type to whatever you'd like. You could change the weight of that line type. You could change the position, all of that stuff you can change inside of text frame options. Maybe I'll do like little Japanese dots or something like that. And color. Yeah, and I could adjust the amount it does it. So maybe I make this a little bit lighter. So I'm happy with that. I'm gonna press OK. So now my text goes around those two columns. Now, if I was to change the size of this box here, and I wanted just naturally my text to avoid this image, I could do what's called text wrap. So you'll see if I click on this, my text wrap options appear over here to the right. That will tell you how text moves around an object. If you click the little arrows here, this will give you more options, and this is how much it avoids it by the top and bottom, left and right. So you can adjust things that way as well. Now, if I've got an image that has an alpha channel, aka a bit of transparency, then I might want to have that adjusting around that as well. So to show you that one, let's do type, fill the placeholder text to add just a bit more text to this. So let's say I want to have like a nice little graphic that kind of exists here in the middle, but I want things to avoid it. So basically you need to find something that has an alpha channel. This could be something you've taken from Photoshop or InDesign. I'm going to just take this little vector illustration I found from online, and I'm just going to Command C to copy this. And I'm going to go over to InDesign here and Command V to paste. And there's my big coffee cup. Ooh, that scale's quite big on that. But let's say I really want a really big coffee cup. Actually, no, I'm just going to scale it down. So vectors work great in InDesign as well. So now if I click on this vector shape and I want to wrap the text around it, I just need to select the shape, and basically you need to select the outline of your shape, if that makes sense. So Command plus to zoom in. Oops. Double click to select your object. Don't want to be in the text tool, I want to be in the pointer tool. And I'm going to select my objects here. And I'm going to just tell it how I want it to wrap. So basically I'm going to say I want it to wrap around the object shape. And then I can just tell it how much I want it to avoid the shape by. And because this has several different layers, I just need to add the other object and just tell it to avoid up there. And the same with the other bit. So it's like a 3-part job, but it will take care of it for the shape. If I had actually made a proper outline of the shape, this would be a little bit easier. But you can see that little bubble, that's it avoiding it. Which is great, because that's what I wanted it to do. So I've got my object there, I can position it, and as I move it around, you can see it scales and will move and avoid my coffee mug. Yeah? Let me move that text wrap out of the way. So that's a really quick way of doing that as well. Now we can also use vectors to work as an image frame, just like with photos. So over here, let's quickly put another vector in. Let's take a coffee bean. We'll just do one. Yeah. I'll just copy that. Let's just say I want the image to fill the coffee bean. Yeah, so I'm going to go back to InDesign, I'm going to paste that, Command V to paste. And let's say over here, I want to have, I don't know, a picture of coffee in my coffee bean. So I'm going to move my coffee bean to where I want to have it, which will be there. And I'm going to find an image that I want to put. I'll put coffee beans inside of that coffee bean. I'm going to go back to InDesign. It's stuck on my mouse. Just dragging it from the Finder again. Yeah. And I'm just going to click, and that will fill that inside of that. And if I right click, control click, and say fitting, fill frame proportionally, that will scale that down. Yeah. Also too, if you have a frame, and the frame is, oops, I want to grab my frame and not the image. 1 second. The red is my frame. So let's say I've changed the size of my frame. Usually if you click and wait a second, it should show you the other part of your image. I say that it doesn't do it because my mouse is being really funny with the guides. But you can, once again, use the frame to change the size and the shape. I can hit the Command key to scale that up and make it fit so that my image looks nice and will fill the entire frame. Click once again inside to adjust the scale to make it the size and the shape I want it to be. And that's basically the gist of it there. So those are all of the things we covered in the last 2 sessions. If you have any questions or anything like that, just send me an email and let me know. But basically, when I'm done with this and I'm happy with this, once again, I'm going to package that. I'm going to go quickly file and save this because I haven't saved it yet. Hopefully you guys have saved yours on the desktop. Save that, and then once again, file, package, and once again, this will put all of my fonts and everything into that nice little folder. Click package there, and basically all of the default settings are fine. Tell it where I want to save it to. I'm going to save it to, whoops, I want to save it to the desktop. Click package, press OK, OK again, wait a second. And then on my desktop, I should have now a folder, Coffee Concertina, that has my InDesign, that IDML file, which is the one that can open up in older versions of InDesign, my document fonts, and my links. All of that is in there. So there's my links, there's all my images. These are the fonts I use that aren't the default fonts. And this has my PDF with my final Concertina on it. So I hope you enjoy working in InDesign. The more you play around with it, the easier it gets. It's a really important piece of software because it's so important for laying out booklets and publications. I use it all the time. I use it to make all the worksheets and handouts and stuff I use, and just practicing using it, even for like a book report or a quick, presentation of something. Just using that just builds those skills up, and every time you get into any of these Adobe programs, keep trying new things, and hopefully it gets easier every time. You just learn one little more keyboard shortcut, one little more thing. Hopefully you'll build on it. That's how I've learned it. I've been learning Adobe software for a very long time now, and yeah, you just pick up little things each and every time you open it up, and eventually you'll accumulate a really wide knowledge. Good luck with this, and take care.